The studio was quiet. Joe Rogan leaned into the mic, his voice lower than usual. "This isn't easy for me to say," he began, staring down at the table, "but I can't pretend anymore." Millions of listeners who had come for laughs and fight talk suddenly found themselves holding their breath. Rogan's face was serious. His tone was calm, but heavy. "I voted for Trump in 2020, he admitted. "And yeah, he did some things right. But I've watched too much now. There's a pattern." He paused. Troops were supposed to come home. Censorship was supposed to end. The swamp was supposed to be drained. But when it mattered, none of it happened. Gasps echoed across social media as the clip began to circulate. "Trump talks tough," Rogan continued. "But when it came time to act, it felt like a letdown." And then, the final line, "I owe my audience the truth, even if it costs me." By the next morning, Your Rogan vs. Trump was trending worldwide. But what no one expected was Trump's reply. It hit like a thunderclap. Within hours of Rogan's comments going viral, President Donald Trump responded, not on TV, not in an interview, but in bold, defiant text on Truth Social. "Joe Rogan has joined the media echo chamber," Trump wrote. The post went further, a lot further. "He's scared of the truth," Trump said. "Ask him why he won't talk about the Epstein hoax." Viewers were stunned. Even die-hard fans of both men weren't ready for this kind of heat. Then came the challenge. Debate me if you're not afraid. Until then, keep hiding behind your mic. It wasn't just a jab. It was a call-out, live, raw, and public. Podcast fans froze. Was Trump dodging Rogan's critique or pointing to something deeper? Rogan's team went silent. No tweets, no podcast update, nothing. And just like that, a casual episode turned into the biggest media feud of the year. The world waited. Hours turned to a day. Joe Rogan's fans flooded Reddit and X, formerly Twitter, asking the same question. Why isn't he responding? Inside his Austin studio, Rogan reportedly canceled all interviews for the next 48 hours. He was thinking, processing, hurt even. Close friend and fellow comic Tim Dillon hinted at Rogan's emotional state on Instagram. "People think Joe's just a bro, but he takes stuff like this seriously. That post from Trump, it shook him." And quietly, behind the scenes, Rogan was watching. He replayed the clip of Trump's Truth Social post over and over again, whispering, "Epstein Hoax? What the hell is he even saying?" This wasn't a fight Rogan had asked for, but maybe it was one he needed. Finally, late that night, Rogan texted a single sentence to his producer, Jamie. "Let's record." The mic was about to go hot again. The studio lights were dimmed, but the red recording light glowed like a warning. Joe Rogan sat in silence for nearly a minute. The air felt thick. Then he looked straight at the camera. "I've been called a lot of things, but afraid?" He shook his head. "Donald, I've defended you. I've supported some of what you've done. But I'm not your cheerleader. I never signed up to be part of a fan club." There was no anger in his voice, just hurt, disappointment, a tone that fans rarely heard. "You say I'm hiding behind a mic? This mic's where I tell the truth. And the truth is, a lot of people believed you. I believed you. But now they feel betrayed." He paused. "Epstein? Really? That's where you're going?" Rogan's voice cracked slightly. He wasn't ranting, he was reflecting. "You're trying to drag me into a conspiracy war instead of answering the real question. Why didn't you do what you promised?" He leaned back. "This isn't war, Donald, but I'm not backing down." The episode dropped. Within minutes, it was the #1 trending video on YouTube. At 6:42 a.m., Trump posted again. The caption was simple. "Joe says he's not afraid. Then let's talk. Live. Anywhere. No script. No edits. The truth, man to man. The internet exploded. CNN aired emergency coverage. Fox News pulled up dual headshots. Twitter turned into a battleground of loyalty, memes, and speculation. Some fans of Rogan cheered the idea of an open debate. Others begged him not to take the bait. But one clip from Rogan's past resurfaced. A 2022 interview with Matt Taibbi, where Joe said, "The moment you start trying to win an argument instead of learn something, you've already lost." People began asking, would Joe accept the debate, or would he choose something deeper? Back in the studio, Rogan wasn't checking trends. He was texting close friends, quietly, carefully. He wasn't scared of Trump's challenge. He was scared of what it might become, because this wasn't about Epstein or a podcast feud. This was about trust, and something inside Joe told him, if we don't get this right, we all lose. It came in a plain envelope. No return address, no fancy packaging. Just a single handwritten letter. Jamie, Joe's producer, found it while sorting the studio's fan mail. Something about it made him pause. Inside was a note. No hashtags, no politics. Just a girl's shaky handwriting. My dad listens to you every night after work. He voted for Trump. He cried after your last episode. He never cries. Joe stared at it. The girl's name was Sarah. She was 14. She said her dad was a veteran who had hoped Trump would bring the troops home. He had lost 2 close friends to war. When you said you felt let down, he said, finally, someone said it. Rogan folded the letter slowly, quietly. This isn't about Trump anymore, he whispered. This is about people, real people. He looked at Jamie. We're going to do one more episode before I respond to Trump's challenge. But this one's not for Donald. He held up the letter. It's for her dad. Rogan placed a single wooden chair across from his own. He looked into the camera and said, I'm not debating Trump, not yet. Today, I want to hear from someone who lived what he promised. A man stepped into frame. Quiet, stiff posture, combat boots worn with age. His name was Carlos Rivas, Marine, father, and 2-time Afghanistan tour veteran. He didn't speak like a politician. He didn't have to. I voted for Trump twice, he said softly. When he said he'd bring us home, I believed him. We all did. His eyes welled up. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a photo. 4 Marines in desert camo. Smiling. Only one of us is still here. He pointed to himself. You know what it feels like when you hear we're getting out. And then, nothing changes. Joe nodded slowly. So did millions of viewers. Carlos's voice cracked. All I want is for someone to say, we didn't keep our word, and that matters. There were no edits, no graphics. Just a man, hit a silence that said more than words ever could. It came during a break, a buzz on Jamie's phone. He looked down, eyes widening. He showed Joe the caller ID. Tulsi Gabbard. Joe answered. She didn't waste time. I saw the episode, she said. Carlos, that hit me hard. As a combat veteran herself, Tulsi had walked the same halls of broken promises. But I also saw Trump's challenge. You don't owe him a fight, Joe. You owe people clarity. Joe rubbed his eyes. I don't want a circus. Tulsi replied, then don't make it one. If he wants to talk, really talk, do it. No crowd, no lights, just a table, like what you gave Carlos. Joe paused. Would you join us if we do it? Tulsi exhaled. Only if it's not about winning. Only if it's about truth. That night, Rogan went live again. His message was simple. Trump wants a debate. I want a conversation. But if we do this, it's going to be different. The comment section lit up. It wasn't a tweet. It was a full press release, signed personally by Donald J. Trump and posted on Truth Social. Joe Rogan says he wants truth. Good. So do I. I'll sit with him, no rules, no moderators. But I won't be lectured by media puppets or war lovers. I'll say my piece and he'll say his. The American people deserve that. He ended with a familiar line. Joe, name the time, or go back to hiding behind your mic. But it wasn't angry. It was calm, focused. Fox News ran a breaking chyron. Trump opened to sit down with Rogan, terms unclear. CNN called it a potentially historic moment of unfiltered political dialogue. The White House remained silent. Meanwhile, Joe stared at the statement on his screen. It's happening, Jamie whispered. Joe nodded. Yeah, but it's not about scoring points. It's about making space for all of us. He pulled out a notebook, scribbled one line. 2 chairs, no crowd, just the truth. It was supposed to be quiet. 2 chairs, no audience, no fanfare. Just Joe Rogan, Donald Trump, and a single camera. But then, it leaked. A staffer from Mar-a-Lago, no one knows who, tipped off the press. The location of the sit-down was posted on X within minutes. Trump and Rogan to meet in Austin, this Thursday. Within an hour, there were helicopters in the sky and camera crews outside Rogan's studio. The peaceful conversation Joe had planned was suddenly turning into a media circus. Backstage, Rogan looked out the window at the crowd forming. This wasn't the point, he muttered. Jamie tried to calm him. We can still do it, keep the format, stay grounded. Joe nodded, but his voice wavered. If this becomes about winning, we lose everything. Meanwhile, Trump's team issued a short statement. The people have a right to hear this. We won't cancel. See you Thursday. Tension was building. Not hate, just pressure. Like standing at the edge of something historic. Joe sat back in his chair. We do it, but we control the room. Thursday came. No fanfare, no audience, just a round wooden table, 2 microphones, and silence. Joe Rogan walked in first, calm, composed. He looked across at the empty chair. Minutes later, Donald Trump entered, not in a suit, but in a navy jacket. No tie, just the man. They shook hands, quietly. Thanks for showing up, Joe said. Thanks for not backing down, Trump replied. The camera rolled. Joe began. Before we argue, I just want to ask, honestly, why didn't the troops come home? Trump leaned forward. Joe, I tried, but the Pentagon, Congress, the defense contractors, they didn't want it. They stalled every move. You think I didn't want it? I watched coffins come home. His voice cracked, just slightly. Joe nodded, listening. Really listening. But he didn't back off. So why not tell the people that? Why keep saying we're doing it when nothing changed? Trump sighed. Because they'd lose hope. I didn't want them to give up on the fight. The room was still. 2 men. 2 truths. Both shaped by pain. Joe took a breath. Let's talk about what you posted. Epstein. You said I'm afraid to speak on it. Why? Trump didn't flinch. Because it's the card they always play when someone gets too close to the truth. Epstein's story isn't about him. It's about control, blackmail, power. Joe pressed in. But why bring me into it? Trump met his eyes. Because you've got the biggest mic in the world, and you never touch it. Not really, and people notice that. Rogan sat back. You're right, I've avoided it. Not because I'm scared, but because every time we get close, it turns into chaos, not truth. Trump nodded. Maybe that's the point. They weren't shouting. They weren't accusing. They were just talking. 2 men, face to face, risking vulnerability in front of the world. Joe looked down at the table. Maybe the real question isn't who's hiding what, but why we keep tearing each other apart instead of figuring it out together. Trump didn't speak. He just stared. And outside,
Millions of viewers were leaning in, breathless.
Joe reached into his pocket and unfolded the worn paper, the one he'd carried for days. He held it up without reading it out loud. "A girl named Sarah sent this," he said, voice steady. "She's 14. Her dad listens to this show every night after work. He's a veteran, voted for you." Trump leaned forward. "I've heard of her. The story went viral." Joe nodded. "He cried after one of my episodes, not because I attacked you, but because I said the truth out loud. That promises were broken." Trump's eyes softened. "That's not what I wanted, Joe. I didn't want to break hearts. I wanted to break the system." Joe folded the letter again. "Then say that. Say it to them. Not as a politician, as a man." For a brief second, Trump's face changed. His eyes weren't defensive. They were reflective, even pained. He didn't interrupt. He just sat there, listening. In that moment, millions watching felt it too. This wasn't about fame or followers anymore. It was about something lost, and maybe something still worth finding. Trump looked down at his hands. For once, he didn't start with strength. He started with honesty. "I didn't expect to feel this much sitting in a podcast studio." He looked at Joe. "You know, when I ran, I had these ideas, big ones. Shake everything, drain the swamp, bring the troops home." He took a breath. "But Washington isn't a swamp. It's cement. Every time you try to dig, the shovel breaks." Joe didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Trump continued. "I fought, I yelled, I tweeted, but I stopped listening. I became a symbol instead of a servant." There was no applause, no spin, just silence. "When I called you out, Joe, it was out of frustration. Not because you were wrong, but because I was afraid you might be right." Joe's face tightened. He wasn't gloating. He was hurting too. "That's the thing, Donald. We don't need you to be perfect. We need you to be real." And for the first time in years, Trump nodded. Not as a president, but as a man who'd finally laid something down. Joe cleared his throat. His voice dropped low. "You asked why I never talk about Epstein, why I avoid it." He looked right into the lens. "It's not fear of the truth. It's fear of losing it." Trump tilted his head. "Say more." Joe leaned in. "Every time I bring it up, the real stuff gets lost. People start chasing ghosts. The victim stories get drowned by theories and noise. And in that noise, no one listens anymore." He paused. "I never wanted to give people drama. I wanted to give them space, to feel, to think, not react." Trump nodded. "But space only matters if we fill it with something that matters." Joe smiled faintly. "Then let's fill it with this, honesty, even when it's uncomfortable." Trump sat back. "Then let's say it clearly. I made mistakes, but I still believe in what I started." Joe replied, "And I still believe in conversation over combat." They didn't agree on everything, not even close. But they had just shown the world something it hadn't seen in years. Two powerful men disagreeing and staying human. The mics were off, the lights dimmed, but no one moved. Joe sat with his palms pressed together, eyes closed. Trump adjusted his cuffs, staring at nothing. The tension wasn't hostile. It was heavy, like two men realizing they'd said everything they could, and yet nothing felt resolved. Finally, Joe spoke. "I'll never agree with everything you did. Some of it, I'll always think was wrong." Trump didn't flinch. "I didn't come here to change your mind. I came here because I couldn't ignore what you said." Joe looked up. "Then why did you call me part of the echo chamber?" Trump sighed. "Because it hurt. Because I thought you understood what I was fighting against." Joe's voice softened. "I do. But fighting for something doesn't mean you get a pass when you fall short." That hit hard. For a moment, The space between them wasn't about politics or ratings. It was two men who believed they were doing the right thing, and were now reckoning with the costs of that belief. A producer walked over, whispering, "There's someone outside. Says he's the son of a Marine. Wants 60 seconds with both of you." They nodded. A young man entered, hoodie, calloused hands, shaking slightly. He held up a photo. His father in uniform, smiling, 2003. "He watched both of you, every night. Said Rogan made him feel sane. Said Trump made him feel strong." He placed the photo on the table. But toward the end, he stopped watching either of you. He felt like no one was fighting for him anymore, just fighting each other. Joe looked away. Trump blinked hard. He died 3 months ago. Cancer. Still believed in America. Still believed in both of you, even when you disappointed him. Silence. Then the young man said what no one else had. He didn't need you to agree. He just needed you to care more about us than about being right. And with that, he turned and walked out. Joe whispered, "I don't want to win arguments anymore. I want to make truth louder than noise." Trump nodded slowly. "Maybe it starts with learning how to lose, with grace." Joe reached for the final switch, the one that ends the stream. He stopped. "One last thing," he said, glancing at Trump. Trump leaned in. "Say it." Joe looked straight into the camera. "You don't have to agree with me or him, but don't stop asking questions. Don't stop holding all of us accountable. That's not rebellion. That's patriotism." Trump followed. "And don't be afraid to disappoint your side, if the truth demands it." Joe reached out. Trump did too. Their handshake wasn't for the cameras. It was for the people who'd been hurt, confused, or abandoned, and still chose to listen. "We'll never agree," Joe said. "No," Trump replied, "but we both love the same country." And as the screen faded to black, the world didn't feel more divided. It felt a little more real. Because maybe, just maybe, truth had finally spoken louder than pride. If this story made you feel something, if it reminded you that disagreement doesn't mean hatred, and that truth matters more than ego, please like, comment, and subscribe. Tell us, what does real leadership mean to you? Do you believe truth still has a place in politics today? This wasn't just about Trump or Rogan. This was about us, all of us. Let's keep the conversation human. Let's keep it going.